get your thoughts on one news story that sort of happened this week, or a game that's coming out pretty soon. Actually, it's about 2 weeks out, but preview coverage just sort of dropped for it recently. So Quantum Break. You guys familiar with Quantum Break?
Yeah.
So Remedy's next big game. Everyone loves Alan Wake. Everyone's big fans of Max Payne around this office as well. Yeah. And this is like a big game that originally when they were pitching, it was part of sort of Microsoft's wider, we're going to have our television wing, we're going to have our video games wing, we're going to sort of cross-pollinate them and whatnot. So they built this whole television show featuring a bunch of very recognizable actors. And I've played, we're under embargo for a lot of it, but yesterday we streamed the first, chapter of the game, which is essentially about 40 minutes of gameplay followed by a 23-minute long cutscene.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, well produced, not like cheap as chips. Like it's no House of Cards, but
going the Metal Gear Solid route.
Is it saying Kojima somewhere touching himself?
Yeah,
That's
full of dozens of different characters and side plots and whatnot, which is the sort of the latest in this long legacy of video games trying to take what happens in interactive arts and what happens in film or television and sort of merge the two of them together.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that as like a future for video games? Because you guys work on the forefront of games development with voice work, and you also have an eye for the theatrical side of it, which most people in development don't. So what do you think about that?
I think we're still, and we have been for a while, we're in the infancy of finding what works and what doesn't in that. Right now we're still in that process of everyone kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I think because we've had games that have really elevated the platform from a storytelling standpoint and blended those lines so well in recent years, examples being like Last of Us or a lot of the Telltale games where they can really, maintain an interactive element throughout where you still feel invested and involved from an interactive standpoint, but still are enjoying and are engrossed in the story in a way where you're involved but still a viewer. And it's those are great examples, and in my opinion, of that form developing. However, with a lot of these renovations and VR now promising even further immersion and interactivity, and trying to maintain that balance of atmosphere and interactivity without it being too heavy one way or the other. I'm excited to see these examples of games that are taking risks and trying out new things. And when I heard the whole theme behind Quantum Break and what they were trying to do with that, I was really excited. I'm still really excited. I'm always very curious to see how that'll turn out. I'm a guy who loves cutscenes. I didn't skip anything in Metal Gear, so I'm one of those guys.
Even the truck?
No, I didn't. I refused to.
You gotta watch it all the way. All the way. Where's this truck going? Something's gonna happen.
No, it's so I myself am actually very excited about it. I don't know if they'll all work. I like a big fan of a lot of David Cage's stuff, who also tried a lot of interesting ideas. Not all of them really hit the way you would hope for, but even so, that sets a precedent and is a great example for other game designers to then build off of that and make something that is more fine-tuned towards what his final vision may be. So hits or failures, they're all helping build towards what will eventually be the emerging platform of interactive gaming.
And really the key word that you said there was immersion. And I think we're seeing all media go that way, to immersion. And like you said, you have to walk the line between not being like, oh, this is work, and still feeling entertained like you're being told a story. So you never want to go like, people give a lot of shit to Heavy Rain.
Right.
But they did make a lot of progresses. And sure, we don't need to have to physically turn every doorknob.
Open every jar.
That's not necessary. But it is interesting the way it's going. But we're also seeing that with digital comics.
Right.
On iPads that have little sound effects or, little things with comics. We're seeing that even with Twitch. I feel like you can still count that with Twitch, where the audience can comment and participate while they're watching things. So I think anything that's going to start merging the two, that's where all medium is going in my opinion.
What do you think when you see front of camera recognizable actors on something like Quantum Break, when you guys are you're already in there, you're part of video game performance, right?
Right.
So does it feel like they're sort of coming into your neighborhood? And
Matt?
I mean, I'm a big proponent of the best performer for the job.
Right.
Should be what's considered. In some cases, there have been projects that maybe you've worked on where they've gone the stunt casting route and they'll bring somebody in without an audition just because they like their work in a project. And sometimes they're amazing and they knock it out of the park. Sometimes you...
But mostly they're not?
I don't say mostly. I say, but there are situations where they'll go a week of recording or so and they'll be like, all right, cool. We're going to go ahead and recast that.
Right.
And it's a little private victory for us lesser known folks. But there are plenty of great performers that can do both sides. So, you know, I'm a big fan of a lot of that work. So, like, if the best performer for the job steps into the ring, go for it. You know, there is always that worry that if it goes more and more celebrity talent, then those of us who don't have that kind of, you know, pool might be passed over in a lot of situations for future roles where, honestly, in some cases, it may not matter. If they're not using the likeness of the actor or performer, it's about the performance, not the actual individual behind it.
Yeah.
And so it depends on how the project's being promoted and what their marketing goals are for it. As a lot of those casting choices are a marketing choice.
Right, yeah.
And a lot of times
help.
a project will get more marketing money if they've got a name attached to it.
I mean, you can
So-
see that with Quantum Break, that, you know, there's a lot of very recognizable people in that
Yeah.
show.
And you can't fault them for that.
Yeah.
I want to see a lot of them.
business. What are you gonna do?
So do you think that there's a different craft, though, to, like, what they're doing in terms of, like, I don't next to nothing about performance at all, but there seems to be, like, there is a more, maybe there's like subtle nuance that exists obviously in both forms, but when they're acting in front of camera, it's, I don't know, I feel like the voice work, it requires a lot more energy or verboseness, or which might not necessarily transition well for those individuals, whereas you guys are like comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's a different skill set, definitely. And whether it comes to voiceover behind the mic, to performance capture with facial capture, to on-camera acting, each is its own skill set that you're kind of switching gears into. With on-camera, everything is very, very thrown away, very internalized, minimized. It's not about showing your expressions, it's about keeping it all internal and very subtle. You know, you have the opportunity on camera to display emotions through subtle eye movements and through just, you know, reactionary, very, very minute expression changes. You don't have that opportunity behind the microphone, and you have to be able to convey those same subtle shifts and changes with only your voice. And that is why you'll get some actors who aren't trained classically or theatrically, who then get behind the mic and then it sounds very stilted and monotone because they're used to relying on that one skill set when they haven't learned the other. Conversely, you have some voice actors that move over to on-camera work and are way too over the top.
Right.
And so you find performers who have trained in all those different skill sets know how to switch those gears and can really knock it out of the park both ways. And a lot of on-camera actors that come over into performance capture and voiceover and do a great job, you'll find are those that, in a lot of cases, are trained theatrically on stage because that skill set lends itself very well both ways.
Like both projecting yourself and also having sort of like small, tender moments.
Yeah, and knowing how to arrange and kind of, you know, meticulously puppeteer those.
Right. Would you like, as, you know, folks who do this professionally, would you like video games to go down the route of what Quantum Break is doing and actually having that live action element? Is that something that excites you, or is that something that maybe you think actually detracts from the work that you do?
I don't know.
Take it or leave it?
Yeah, I will have to see it. I mean, if all video games start to go that route, then that could be unfortunate. But I mean, I love Dungeons and Dragons, and I also love Fallout. You know, and those two things they satiate me in different ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what we'll see with stuff like Quantum Break. I don't think it's going to be a replacement. I also am a bit of a sucker for the artistry of digitally painting environments and the artistry that the CG artists go into with video games. I don't think it's going to be universal, though. I mean, we'll still see games like Nidhogg come out, which are 8-bit, which is a phenomenal game. It just satiates different needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on that point, too, the interactive element of gaming can only allow so much live action pre-filmed content before it's no longer as interactive as the genre requires to be called interactive.
Right.
So there'll always be a line that they can push to a certain point before you have to then turn it over and rely on all the wonderfully talented 3D animators and riggers and people that actually create all these variables that allow the interactive experience. So it doesn't worry me by any means. I'm curious to see how it's involved and how it can help elevate the storytelling platform of games, but I don't foresee it taking over or replacing other elements just because the limitations of the pre-filmed video format.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we end up with a whole new realm of 3DO, night
exactly.
trap based.
Happens all over again. Yeah,
exactly.
Let's get that Night Trap 2017
It's like a
imagination.
choose your own adventure.
Kickstarter, guys, it's time.
I like it. Thanks so much for talking about that. If you're watching this on demand, do you have any thoughts yourself about the future of 3DO games coming back? Let us know what you think in the comment box below.